Okay, welcome back everyone. This is a little different, this video, because this is not about science fiction or about scary horror. This is actually about UFOs. This is one of the most discussed subjects. Uh, well, yeah, since last few years it got really wild. But it's not a new phenomenon. I mean, if you look at religious texts, for example, and archaeology, it's filled with suggestions of visitors from the sky. And I think the first real recorded UFO sighting is probably the one of Christopher Columbus, where he saw a shiny ball of light appear from the water, right? It rose up out of the water, and it's in one of Columbus's diaries. And that is a person who discovered and America. I mean, it's one of the people. And well, ever since then, people have been looking at the sky, and sometimes they see interesting stuff. And well, last few years it's gotten more attention, especially since the latest Pentagon releases. Like the whole stories became more verified. So in this video, I'm just going to discuss a few sightings that you can consider like really chilling, and they've stuck around. Like some are around for a while, and they've not been discredited, and still the people and the witnesses involved are still sticking with their story. And it never hurts to talk a bit about that. Now, if you like these stories, make sure to give a thumbs up, share it around, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this is not not going to be a one-time thing, even though I have to get acquainted to the subject a bit. So I'll start with kind of like a famous one, the story of Betty and Barney Hill. Because these two were driving on a road in New Hampshire at night when a bright light seemed to start following them. And when they eventually got home, it was already daylight, and their clothes were dirty and ripped, and their watches had stopped working, and they both couldn't remember a thing. So much later, during sessions with a psychiatrist, they recalled that they were being probed and violated by aliens during a so-called abduction. And the case was later investigated by a thing called Project Blue Book, and is now officially a declassified UFO secret. So that's the story of Betty and Barney Hill. It's so famous that we shouldn't go into more details on that one. You just search for that story on the search engine you use. Here is perhaps something that might interest you too, because there is then the story of Barbara Lamb and the Lizard Man. So a woman named Barbara Lamb, a psychotherapist who observed crop circles, claimed that a reptilian figure appeared in her house one day. And this was written about by the Vanity Fair. And the figure was tall and had piercing yellow eyes. And normally not fond of snakes and lizards, the reptile appeared friendly and welcoming to Lamb. So she just reached out to touch his hand. And then the lizard man vanished as suddenly as he appeared. And here's something else, because there were Zimbabwe children and the end of the world. In September of 1994, several UFOs allegedly hovered near a school in Arua in Zimbabwe. It's also from Vanity Fair. The children who observed these UFOs were terrified when they were asked to explain what had happened. They described beings with big heads, no nose, just two holes, no mouth, and long black hair. The children said they were dressed in dark suits and that they communicated telepathically. I think it's about something that's going to happen, said one little girl. What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. They were telling us the world's going to end. I don't even know, it just popped up in my head. He never said anything, he talked just with his eyes. And we have the Rendlesham Forest incident. Because this is known as Britain's Roswell, the Rendlesham Forest incident is one of the most famous UFO reports. And the reason why is because the witnesses involved in the December 1980 event were US military personnel, and they were considered highly credible witnesses. So they reported seeing an alien aircraft zoom through the forest. When they went to go check it out, it seemed as though strange hieroglyphics were written all over the craft. So later it turns out that this was most likely a prank played on the US soldiers by the British military. We don't know for sure, but that is the story they came up with later on, and that is from the telegraph.co.uk. So if you want to search about it, search for the Rendlesham Forest incident. And then we have the O'Hare International Airport saucer. On November 7, 2006, United Flight 446 was about to depart from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport when a dozen United Airlines employees spotted an odd metallic craft hovering over the gate. The employees reported that it hung in the air for several minutes before finally shooting up at a breakneck speed into the clouds. And the strangest part, the UFO did not register on the airport's radar despite all the witnesses. So the FAA declined to investigate, chalking it up to a weather phenomenon. And then we have the Melbourne 350. Because more than 300 students and teachers of the Westall High School in Melbourne, Australia, saw an unbelievable sight on April 6, 1966. And this is shared by the New York Post. They were all looking incredulously at 5 planes that were attempting to corner and capture a UFO. This went on for a while before the UFO zipped away out of sight. It is reported that the headmaster of the school and even strange men in black suits told the students and teachers never to say anything about it, even though it was witnessed by hundreds of people. So that is the Westall High School in Melbourne. It's an event from 1966. Then you have the story of Robert Matthews and the missing time. So, according to CBS Reality, an airman named Robert Matthews got off a bus in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, to report for his first tour of duty back in 1966. Matthews saw strange lights appearing in the deserted area where the bus driver had told him to call and wait for a truck to pick him up and take him to base. Afraid, he used a payphone to call the base a second time, what he thought was 5 minutes later. The person who answered the phone told him that the truck had arrived to pick him up 5 minutes after he got off the bus, but the driver couldn't find Matthews. In actuality, an hour separated those two phone calls. And this phenomena is called missing time and is commonly associated with alien abduction cases. Then we have the Broadhaven Primary School drawings. That is a report from the BBC. And they said that in 1977 a group of school's children from the Broadhaven Primary School claimed to have seen a UFO near their playground. The teachers of the school refused to believe them, but when the children were separated and asked to draw pictures of the experience, they all came up with the same drawing of a flying saucer. And that is 1977, the Broadhaven Primary School. Then we have the Frederick Valentich disappearance. As Australian pilot Frederick Valentich was flying over the Bass Strait when he encountered something that he couldn't identify. And this is according to news.com.au. He got on his radio to notify air control that there was a strange vessel, the likes of which he had never seen before, circling him as if taunting him. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft, were the last words Valentich said before he and his plane disappeared forever. What a mysterious one. Then we have Fred Chrisman and Harold Dahl. In 1947, Harold Dahl was out of the Puget Sound with his son and his dog. History.com recounts that Dahl saw 6 strange aircraft overhead, one of which fell an estimated 1,500 feet out of the sky and into the water below. The metal debris hurt his son and killed his dog. Dahl told his supervisor at work, Fred Chrisman, what had happened, and Chrisman came and verified it for himself. Soon afterward, a man in a black suit supposedly came to Dahl and warned him not to speak of the incident again. It is said that this incident inspired the movie Man in Black. And we have the Washington merry-go-round. A 1952 incident where 7 unidentified objects appearing over secure airspace near the Pentagon. They were captured on film. The crafts were registered on radar, and jets were immediately sent to investigate these suspicious, strange craft. However, when the American jets approached that airspace, those 7 objects disappeared from the radar, and when the jets landed, the objects returned to the radar screen once more. President Harry S. Truman was notified, and Air Force Intelligence Director General Sanford held a press conference saying that these were reports made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. In this group of observations that we are attempting to resolve, there was no resolution. Then we have Japan Airlines Flight 1628. So that is in 2001, and former FAA official John Callahan told at a conference of high-ranking officials that in 1986, Japan Airlines Flight 1628 was on its way from Paris to Tokyo when crew members spotted several UFOs. In a television documentary, the American Heroes Channel reports that the JAL crew called in multiple UFOs surrounding the plane, including one that was 4 times their own size. They made an emergency landing at Anchorage, Alaska, where the ground crew confirmed the sighting. Then we have the Mazzarello Exeter incident. It was 1965, and it was in Exeter, New Hampshire, when a hitchhiker named Norman Mascarello saw 5 strange red flashing lights in the woods. As TV station WMUR recounts, the source of the light suddenly came towards him at a frightening speed. Mascarello dove into a ditch to avoid being hit before flagging down a motorist. Police investigated the area, and they too saw the same aircraft with the same bright red light speed off out of sight. Today the event is celebrated with a yearly Exeter UFO festival. Then we have a knock on Rick Sorrell's door. In 2008, an unfathomably large aircraft hovered above Stephenville, Texas. Many people in the community saw it, and according to the Mutual UFO Network, a pilot named Stephen Allen reported that the unusual aircraft was flying at an estimated 3,000 miles per hour and was being chased by fighter jets. Then a man named Rick Sorrell said that he saw the same thing while hunting later. Sorrell says a strange man knocked on his door and said, "Son, we have the same caliber weapons you have, but we have more of them. You need to shut your mouth about what you saw." And then we have one more. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you like these stories, and press the thumbs up. It helps. The last one is called Richard French and the Drowned UFOs. In the 1950s, it was Lieutenant Colonel Richard French's job to explain away UFO phenomena for the government. There was only one problem. Lieutenant Colonel French actually saw alien ships with his own eyes, reports the Daily Mail. At a citizen hearing on disclosure in 2013, the then 83-year-old man told the truth for the first time about what he saw as a young man in the waters of St. John's, Newfoundland. 2 UFOs that had crashed and sunk in the water, and aliens trying to fix them. They succeeded and took off. He didn't mention UFOs in his report at the time. How's that for a freaky government cover-up? So thanks for listening, boys and girls, and I'll be back soon.